Welcome back to another episode of The Mucky Middle. I'm Nick Hunter, CEO and co-founder of B Corp creative agency Paper Moose. In this episode, Leigh Barnes of Intrepid Travel talks about his journey from fried chicken loving, V8 driving, beer enthusiast to Chief Customer Officer advocating for responsible purpose-driven travel, all while wrestling with the juggling act of brand building and carbon commitments. Leigh and I talk the mucky middle of travel and climate change, how experiences are more valuable than things, and how the loneliness epidemic is shaping destinations around the world. I hope you enjoy. This is The Mucky Middle. Awesome. Well, Leigh, thank you so much for joining us in The Mucky Middle.
Thanks, Nick. Appreciate it.
So you are the Chief Customer Officer at Intrepid, building the best travel company for the world. Tell me a little bit about young Leigh. Like, what was it that you wanted to be when you grew up, when you were a kid?
Captain of the Australian cricket team, or a journalist covering the Australian cricket team was probably my jam, Nick. But yeah, quickly realised that probably wasn't in my crystal ball. So I grew up in the western suburbs of Melbourne. Pretty typical lad from that part of the world. Drank beer, drove a V6, ate fried chicken. So I'm probably a very different incarnation of what I probably thought I was going to be at that point.
Amazing. And how did you get from a V8 fried chicken lover to key element of a B Corp travel company?
Yeah, no magic sauce here. Travel. I went and lived in Edinburgh when I was 23, 24, and travel just opened my eyes. Took me as probably a young, ignorant, cocky white dude and punched me square in the face and taught me that I needed to behave, think, act, review my position in the world. And yeah, from that moment, probably going to live in Edinburgh, traveling a lot around Europe, North Africa, Morocco, changed me pretty quickly. Came back probably a very different person with very different worldviews around what I wanted to do with myself. I wasn't probably taking life too seriously at that point, cruising along, having a laugh, seeing where everything took me. And then the other moment was I trekked to Everest Base Camp probably about 12 years ago, and I was lucky at that point to be working at Intrepid. But again, I was probably cruising, and that moment really shook me up. I learned a hell of a lot. I think the memory that sticks with me the most is learning that, most people are more alike, that everyone is literally out there trying to set their family up, feed their family, send their family to university, have a beer with their friends on a Friday, whatever day it is. Like, there's more similarities, and I just learnt that. It came to me so quickly in Nepal, and then just how privileged I was to be able to, see the Himalayas. So yeah, travel probably more than anything else has changed the way I see the world, and has shaped me drastically more than I would have imagined. So, cliched answer for a bloke that works in the travel industry.
Not at all. I mean, and is that sounds like the thing that is that the thing that drives you is trying to help people have that same experience?
Yeah, because travel's cool. Like the joy of travel. We at Intrepid want to create positive change through the joy of travel, and I'm so lucky and privileged to work at a company that every day we're helping people to go see the gorillas in Rwanda, go to Halong Bay in Vietnam, have tea with the Berber family in Morocco. Like, these are pretty cool aspirational things that probably weren't available to a lot of people just 20 years ago, or at the same scale that they are now. So yeah, incredibly lucky and privileged that that's my job. I go into that too when I have to speak to customers that have obviously had a tough trip or things haven't worked out, that of course they are. Of course they're frustrated because it's their holiday, it's what they've worked for. So yeah, pretty lucky and privileged to be able to help people get to see the world and have that amazing joy when you travel.
So tell us a little bit about your role today, because obviously you've been at the company for some time, so you've sort of changed roles several times, but tell us about your current role.
Yeah, so I'm the Chief Customer Officer. Probably at most other organisations there would be the CMO, Chief Marketing Officer. But effectively, my job really comes down to three key areas. One is to continually make it easy as possible for customers to engage, share, book, transact with Intrepid. So really trying to remove any friction, make it as easy as possible for customers every day. The second one is make Intrepid a global iconic brand. We fundamentally believe that the more people know about us, know what we stand for, and understand our story, means they will travel with us and more likely to travel with us in the future. And then the third one is to enhance Intrepid's reputation around whether it's our purpose work, whether it's through press, whether it's through key partners, or even our online presence. How do we continue to improve our reputation and be seen as someone that's doing the right thing for the right reasons? So that's how I explain it. There's lots of functional stuff, operational stuff that goes under it, but they're the three probably cool things that get me out of bed that I get to make happen every day.
Yeah, awesome. And in terms of, because you've been with the business for so long, I guess what are the big changes that you've sort of seen?
With the world or with the company or both? I suppose the context. I remember when I first...
Yeah, both. I mean, they're kind of connected.
Yeah, like when I first travelled 15 years ago, not first travelled, but when I was travelling 15 years ago, no internet. You'd go to the internet cafe to work a trip. I remember going on trips in Europe where I literally didn't have hostels booked, and you'd go to the billboard and find them and rock up, and there was no rooms, and you'd go to the next one, and that was literally how you travelled. No Uber. Sustainability wasn't really on the agenda. Climate change was probably more about the ozone layer, or recycling was probably. So if I fast forward to now, what has changed massively since that day is a couple of key things. Climate is so important from a travel perspective. Without a healthy planet, we do not have a travel industry. So I think this is something that's pertinent for all travel companies. If you can't go to see Everest Base Camp because the Khumbu ice shelf has melted, you actually don't have a product. If there's no gorillas to see in Rwanda or Uganda, like, these things are really, really pertinent to a travel company, and you need to have that social license to operate. The communities need to want you to go there. So I think that's been one of the seismic changes from a travel perspective that has rapidly happened over the last 15 years, and I'd probably say even in the last two, it's really accelerated. The second big trend that we've seen has changed is the loneliness epidemic. And I think this is something that's really accelerated out of the pandemic. There's key cities like Toronto, which now has single dwellings as the number one dwelling in that city. We know that people are, we're more connected than ever through the internet, but there's this real feeling of lack of connection. We know that because of things like Instagram or Airbnb, that things look more alike than ever before. You go to a cafe in Melbourne, Toronto, Mexico, Tokyo, they're all starting to look a certain way. So this sense of, so this loneliness epidemic and similarness is really, really increasing. So what's our role here as a social connector and company that's able to do that? And then continuing people valuing experiences over things. I think this is a trend that we've seen consistently grow each year. It probably hasn't come as fast as the other two in the last 5 years, maybe since the pandemic, but people want to have experiences, and they want to travel for more than just the icon tick off the box or the flop and drop beer and beach thing. They want to have experiences that they can brag of, that are unique, that are one of a kind. So yeah, there's some of the big seismic changes that have happened beyond just the practical things of internet cafes and having to get taxis and hopping around to hostels without bookings, which seems crazy, Nick, that's how we traveled back in the day. Anyway.
Yeah, it's amazing. Like when I think about even like Lonely Planet and how critical that book was when you used to travel, and before the internet was sort of, you didn't have a connection, or you'd have to go to an internet cafe, or we always had that book, and that would be kind of the core. And these days I'm trying to find hidden places online or talking to locals, and that idea of finding an authentic local experience seems to be a key desire from customers today.
Yeah, like I remember stuff too, like you take one book on your holiday and trade it at hostels, like Into the Wild and Shatara, everyone had these books, would get traded around. So like that's gone now too, which I think comes back to that loneliness thing. Like, when you travel, you'd go to a pub or to a hostel you'd find, and you knew there was a book swap. Like, you didn't even buy books, you were just trading them up the whole time. So yeah, like this whole connection piece has really changed a lot over the last 5 years coming out of the pandemic, and this want for some sort of greater connection is a trend that we're seeing more and more of.
Yeah, it's interesting when you talk about like creating these frictionless experiences. I guess there is that that flip side of things, that sometimes those elements of friction actually caused you to bump into people and have conversations, and it's interesting to now try and think about how we can do that in a digital age, and how we can, I guess, force these moments of connection in real places.
Yeah, well, I think we try and remove all that, make it easier through the booking process or the initial piece, because there's so much anxiety for customers, especially traveling to some of these places, and so we've got to always do a better job there. But then on the trip, there isn't a nature of serendipitous. You've gone to this particular class to learn to dance, or you've gone to this cooking class, or you've gone to a bar to try this unique thing, or you've met someone completely new from another part of the world on your trip. Your tour leader is a local, so there are elements that go into the Intrepid pie that we have a little sprinkling of serendipity on them to try and have those, and also too, the trips we hope will challenge and change you as well. So there is components, whether it's going to be cultural differences that you need to learn and grow through, whether it's physical components. I think it's a beauty of Intrepid. I think one of the piece of feedback I've been most proud to receive has been from a trip we had in Australia. We've done a lot of work around how we can better tell First Nations story and represent our First Nations people on our Australian product. And one of the most amazing pieces of feedback was from a customer who basically said in the first sentence of their feedback that they were racist, but then by the end they needed to change their view, and they were looking at a world through a whole new different lens, and they wanted to they were flipping their opinions before they had the trip. So yeah, that's the power that can come through some of those serendipitous moments, and also by challenging yourself and having experiences out in the world.
Yeah, and taking people out of their comfort zone and opening their eyes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. I guess tell us a little bit about how Intrepid is different from other other travel companies.
Yeah, well, I think the main things for us that we are looking to be different around is that sustainability piece. We are a B Corp. We have been carbon neutral, I think, now for almost 15 years. We are signed up to the UN science reduction targets. So that sustainability is 100% core in everything that we do. We're either trying to minimize our negative impacts or amplify our positive impacts, and we do a lot of work around advocacy. Then there's the product. We deliver real life experiences on the ground where that are going to be different that you would get through other travel companies. It's not your typical go to a destination, stay in a hotel. You will go and have unique experiences depending on where you are in the world. As I said, I've mentioned a few. That could be, having tea with the Berber family in Morocco. It could be a homestay in Lake Titicaca. It could be going to see Machu Picchu or climb Kilimanjaro. So those experiences that come through is really what set us apart, is to have those. And then finally, it's that social connection piece. You do go and connect with people on the trip, you connect with your local leader, and you connect with the communities you visit, and that social connection is really enriching. So I'd say those three things for us makes it stand out: as our sustainability, the actual product experiences, and then that social connection piece.
Are they often singles or couples that generally go on the trips? Yeah.
Both. So we would have a mix of groups of friends, solo travelers, couples that would go into the melting pot. Our trips are all small group adventures, so about 16 or less, depending on a couple other trips where we need bigger vehicles like in Africa and Antarctica. So they're normally going to be smaller melting pots that we have, and it'll be a range of different people of all ages on our trips.
Yeah, interesting. And what's the favourite trip that you've done? I imagine you've done a lot of them.
I've been very privileged. Yeah, no, I haven't done all of them. I think at the moment we've got over 1,000 different itineraries. Okay. So
Got to do something.
I haven't been able to do that. My favourite trip is the one I did to Everest. Nothing. You've probably heard me say challenge and change a few times. That trip really opened my eyes in a few ways. It was amazing local leaders. Going to spend 2 weeks hiking through the Himalayas is just like nothing else. Completely disconnected, no internet, didn't drink, just really removed myself from, my standard rat race that you get involved with. And then also too, just going to a city like Kathmandu, it's like a completely different place, has that complete sensory overload, component. So my favorite trip has been to Nepal, and the other place that I've got a soft spot that I've gone to numerous times is Morocco. Again, just because it is so different. with my Western lens, it's very, very different. I've had some of my favorite experiences there, getting to watch the sunrise over the Sahara, or going surfing along the coast there. It's been a pretty special place.
Yeah, awesome. In terms of like the purpose-driven element, and I can only imagine how difficult it is. Obviously, with travel, we have a lot of carbon in flying everywhere. How does all of that element work in, I guess, either making it neutral, or how do you operate in that way?
Yeah, so there's probably three things to take a step back beyond just flights, the way we look at purpose and impact. Every business is going to be having negative impacts, and they're going to be having positive, and they have a role to play based on their platform. So the way we look at it is that we need to minimize our negative impacts. One of the biggest negative impacts we have as a travel company is the fact you have to fly. So what can we do to reduce that impact? Positive impact that we have is that we get cash into local economies. Money is one of the most powerful self-determining factors that communities can self-determine. So from a flight's point of view, we offset all our whole business. So there's rather complex carbon audit that takes place where we review how much carbon we've created as an organisation. That's completely offset and verified by the Australian government through Climate Active. We then are also doing everything we can to reduce our carbon emissions. So that's changing our product, removing flights, adding trains, changing our energy profile, all of those things to help reduce our impact. We've got some pretty ambitious reduction targets by 2030 that we need to get to as an organisation. And then on the positive side, it's how that we can continue to develop community-based tourism projects, invest in non-for-profit organisations that are doing great work on the ground. So really trying to amplify that positive impact. And then finally, because of our platform that we have, and we're privileged enough, is we advocate like crazy on topics that are important to us and champion things. You'll see us be quite outspoken around climate and its role in travel. We do a lot of work through the Intrepid Foundation. We raised almost $3 million last year through that to get into local projects, and we think it's really important to advocate and create positive change and get other companies to follow suit. We're now incredibly proud that there's so many travel B Corps in the world. Rewind 5 years ago, that wasn't the case. So yeah, that sort of gives you a bit of an idea around our philosophy. Nick, I've answered it in a few different ways, but it's probably better to explain the whole pie rather than just the slither.
No, I love that. And how important is, because Intrepid's been a B Corp for some time now. I guess, what is your view on kind of the B Corp and how important it is from a brand layer?
Yeah, so I think 2018, give or take, 2018, I think off the top of my head, is when we first became a B Corp. Why we like it at Intrepid is a couple of key reasons. One is it is external validation and audit around your purpose performance. Yeah? Are you engaging communities the right way? Are you looking after your workers? Are you harming the planet or minimizing your reactions there? Effectively, if you look at it, much like an audit would take place for your finances to say, yes, you are doing this in the right way, B Corp really shines a light and helps you do that. At the time, we were like doing all these things and we thought we were the bee's knees, we were doing all the right stuff, but we didn't have a way to verify beyond just saying we were doing it. So it's really helped us do that. It's shone light on areas that we've needed to improve. One of the big areas that I've been leading and working through has been our ethical marketing guidelines at Intrepid. We believed we were marketing ethically and representing different voices and people. B Corp said, how do you know that? I said, well, I've told people. And they're like, but how do you prove that? And I said, well, I've told the team they need to do that. And they're like, well, it doesn't sound exactly rigorous, doesn't sound very easy to manage, and there's no way for you to prove that. And it was something that was important for us as an organisation to ensure we were representing our customers in the right way and manner. And then because of that feedback and insight from B Corp, we've built out our ethical marketing guidelines, which is 30 areas of impact where we've committed to get better. And that's things around ensuring that we're representing people of differing abilities in our creative, that we're not using colonial language throughout our trip information. So yeah, it's been able to help drive that change within the organisation. So yeah, it's been really strong in that regards as a vehicle to drive change and also keep us honest around what we're saying and ensure there's some sort of rigor around the work that we're doing.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely why Josh and I went for it, just so that we could, we thought we were doing good things, but that they give you the frameworks and really push you to actually prove what we are doing is good, and how can we continue to improve and be better.
And then also, yeah, that last point is exactly that. How does it make you be better too? Like sometimes you're like, oh, we're good at that thing, we do it, and it's like, well,
How
should we
can
maybe
we
doing more?
Yeah.
Yeah, like it's cool that you do X, but shouldn't you be pushing harder? That's a pretty big negative impact you're having still. So I think it does that really well, where it pushes you to continually to be better. It's hard. It's definitely hard, and it's rigor around it. But it sort of shows that it's good and worthwhile. Yeah, if it was easy and you're able to just pay your money and get the tick, it sort of defies its purpose. And I think that's why there's probably been some backlash in some regards about some of the bigger companies coming on board to B Corp. But I think if they're going to advocate and have positive change, it's how we have more larger companies live up to these standards, and it's not just a closed group of people already doing good stuff. I think for its power and impact to be broader, we need more companies to be looking at a balanced scorecard and not just focusing solely on profit. You need to understand your relationship with workers. You need to understand your relationship with the environment. You need to be looking after the community that you live and base yourself in as an organisation. So, yeah, I think that is really important. And the more companies that aspire and work under this model, I think it's going to be better.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, better to have more people in the tent and helping lift them up and focusing on the triple bottom line.
So, and they're not going to be perfect. Like even the B Corps we have now, some are great at something, some are poor at others. We're poor at components, we're great at others. So, I think you've got that rigor, you're aspiring to be better, and you're improving. That's the direction we want to be heading in, and it's not going to be perfect.
No, I agree. Have there been some tricky moments where maybe there was a trip that you absolutely loved, but you actually had to change it or let it go because it was against the values and what you were trying to do? Have there been some tricky decisions there?
It happens all the time. So there's the operational thing where that's getting reviewed every day. This is one of our most popular trips. Does it have too many flights? Do we need to move the train? What's happening here? But there's probably one big example, and that's been around elephant rides. So elephant rides in Southeast Asia at the time, about 10 years ago when we removed elephant rides, was about 30% of our overall business.
Wow.
And elephant rides were like that, like what Instagram, like the most, like everyone was on their Facebook page. You used to see people sitting with the tigers or riding elephants. It was quite a big cultural thing, especially to do when you're in Southeast Asia. And we were part of that. We had it advertised them. It was a very popular experience on our trips. And we started to dig and do some research and look at it. And the truth was it wasn't the best practice, and it wasn't something that a company like ours or any company in that matter should be engaging in animal abuse. So we removed it from our trips, and we were pretty nervous at that time. It's a large chunk of your business. It's one of the most popular experiences. Yeah. But ultimately, we've seen bookings to that part of the world continue to grow. It probably was the starting of us understanding more around the importance of leadership and how that helps grow your organization and other people wanting to make that change. So yeah, there's lots of examples, small examples that happen every day that there's tension around and discussion, and then there's bigger moments like that where we've had to have quite a hot conversation and make a call. And we don't always get it right, but it does show we're always trying to lead and push forward. And yeah, that's a really good example where making the right call was actually good for business, but at the time it was quite nerve-wracking. You don't have all the information to know if that's going to be the case.
Yeah, sometimes a principle is only a principle when it costs you something. Hopefully it doesn't, but sometimes it feels like it might.
That's quite a principled saying, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's quite. But I think it always does. You've got skin in the game, and if there's not tension there around the decision, it may not be worthwhile making. Sometimes is it really going to be that important then? So, look, I do think that comes into our decision making, and we want to push ourselves. So I think that tension is good, and I don't think you just want to be hearing from one voice. You want to have a bit of dissent around these bigger topics.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, we try and involve our staff in if there's a customer that's sort of in that grey area of do we think they're adding or subtracting to the world and being a positive influence or negative, and we'll have a discussion around it and try and navigate it with our team, and then also engage the B Corp team, because they're often great in sort of helping us navigate some of those decisions as well. With that particular example, did you see a change in the industry after you'd made that?
Yeah, look, I don't think there's really an adventure travel company or small group tour operator that would offer elephant rides anymore. like we've seen a lot of the OTAs, big OTAs, remove them as a product as well. So yeah, it's been able to drive a lot of positive change throughout the sector, which is super cool.
Yeah, awesome. And so you recently launched a big brand campaign. Can you tell us, like, Intrepid has been on a bit of a tear in the last few years. It seems like you've been on quite a large growth trajectory. What's been sort of fueling that?
Well, look, the pandemic was probably the first big moment. I became the chief customer officer at Intrepid. What was like pandemic was 2020, so maybe end of 2019, and COVID came along. We've been growing pretty substantially at that point, and then overnight, revenues, we had record January, record February, and then revenues went virtually to zero overnight. And then all the stuff that goes into helping you get that revenue vanished. When I looked at our traffic reports and our marketing KPIs and indicators, it was like the only thing that was left was our organic traffic. And it really sort of hit me, I've probably said punch in the face too many times. It really hit me, like stood out. I don't get punched in the face that much. I don't know why I keep using that expression.
You a boxer?
I boxed when I was younger and much dumber, but not very well too. So if you stripped it all away, if you didn't have the trips, which we didn't even have at that point, what were we? And we were just a brand. And I was, at that point, I went on a real big learning journey around how would we make sure that this wouldn't happen again. And we'd always have something to talk about, because that was the other thing. If we were going to be a travel company about travel, what do you do? And up to that point, we'd probably spent about 90% of our marketing budget on performance marketing. I had come from, performance marketing background myself. And at that point, it was like, well, if we're going to sit idle for this amount of time, we need to start building back the machine better than ever. And we prioritized redoing our brand. So we refreshed it, made it look better. Didn't throw it all out, kept all the cool components that made us great today, but just made it look better, vibrant, work a little bit harder for us. And then we went about talking about ourselves more. We initially did Travellers Back for Good. So as the pandemic started to unpick, we went quite big around that messaging, and we wanted to highlight the good. So it's going to come back good, not just the travel is good, but it needs to come back better. And we really captured a moment that the whole industry got behind, and we're able to do that. That delivered some really strong growth coming out of the pandemic. And then we doubled down on that sort of messaging with Good Trips Only. Had our first ever global campaign in Melbourne, London, Toronto, New York, and Sydney, with everything from video content, written content, to billboards, trams, buses,
Times Square,
subways, Times Square, all that sort of stuff, podcast, radio. And we've continued to see that record growth came through. We had our best year ever last year, both from a bookings point of view and from a profit point of view. More people know Intrepid than ever before. We now have more traffic than our competitors. We're more well known, and that translate into bookings. We really had that reflection, is that our job was to make sure that people knew who we were. They had a good emotion when they thought about us, and when they were going to purchase, we were one of the companies that they were to look at. And then we had a whole performance machine that then had to make sure it did its job. I'm not saying you've got to forget that. It's definitely 2-speed. And once they came searching for us, we needed to show up in SEO, PPC, the website needed to be fast, give them the right, we had to do all that stuff right. But it now gives us a much bigger area to play in, that we've been moving forward to become an iconic brand. And we've seen lots of, happy accidents around that too, is that not only does our direct business grow, which is up 40%, which is fantastic. We've had more web bookings than ever before, but we've also seen our trade business continue to grow. We've seen more businesses reach out to us. Customer pride scores increase as well, which has been really strong. It's quite cool for me to see staff going to get photos under Young and Jackson's pub in Melbourne that had the advertising, or in Times Square, or in Young and Dundas in Toronto, or next to the red buses in the UK, which was super cool. So we've been able to ride that and start to see now more than ever that more people do know Intrepid, and we're continuing to go down that path. Later this year, we'll be launching Intrepid Books, which will be Intrepid Destination Guides, which will be super
covering
cool.
Off that Lonely Planet hole.
Not so much. It's not the same sort of travel guide. It's more telling experiential stories of a place. So if you did want to go to Italy, Iceland, Morocco, that you could get Intrepid Morocco, and it would be a book full of stories about different experiences in that place that you too could go have. So it should give you a much better sense of place, an idea around the experiences that you could have there, but it's not going to be like day one, do this, day two, do that, go to this place, etc. So that'll be pretty cool, and that'll be the first book will be available in November this year. And then we're also doing some exciting stuff like moving into hotels and accommodation. We recently purchased an eco lodge in the Daintree, just reopening after some of the horrific weather they had there. So that's going to be cool. Yeah, continuing to try and find new ways to be more parts of people's lives more often. And yeah, it's been pretty successful today.
Yeah, no, awesome. I love the Good Trips Only platform. I think it does a really good balance. Like I find some purpose advertising misses the mark in terms of focusing too much on the purpose side of things and not on what's in it for me, what is the product benefit, and I think it does a really good job of balancing those two things in the clever wording.
Yeah, Nick, and that's a really good point. That's something that was very intentional. So I'm glad you picked up on that. Is like too often, I think with some of the purpose stuff, it seems an excuse not to have a brilliant product.
100%.
And doing the right thing is no excuse not to have a brilliant product. So your product has to be amazing. That has to be your starting point. You've got to have an amazing product. You've got to do what you say on the tin and better than that. And then the purpose is really like the output of that product. The product should have minimal impact. It should be, any negative impact you need to be managing and dealing with. So that was very deliberate and something we want to articulate, that our trips are great and there's no proxy for that. The trips are bloody brilliant.
You're not sacrificing anything, but by going on a good trip, it is a good trip. In every sense of the word.
Yeah, and that would be one of my big pieces of advice for anyone doing purpose marketing or advertising. Like your product still has to be brilliant. You still need to make sure that you're solving a problem for your customer, and your customer understands that. It's good that you're doing all this great stuff, and that needs to be communicated, but you need to understand when the right time to communicate to your customer about that is, when they want that information, how you do it. But you need to articulate very clearly the power and purpose of your product and why you're advertising, why you're marketing. Otherwise, it's not going to do its job as hard.
Yeah, I agree. It has to be what's in it for me first and foremost, and then the purpose element is the kicker and generally the reason why people continue to come back and retention. Do you do surveys in terms of like what is the primary reason that people choose Intrepid?
Yeah, look, it is the product. Like, I really love the itinerary. I wanted to go to that destination. I wanted to do that experience. That is the number one driver. Then there's secondary things around price, dates, just the functional availability things. You don't have the right price and I can't get there on that date because of my life. But yeah, the product is number one. I wanted to go do this. I wanted to see this, and I wanted to do that in Intrepid. What we see, though, is exactly what you said in our research and surveys, is that one of the main reasons customers come back with us, or they talk about and tell their friends, is the great work that we do. The other two kickers with that great work, so that great work helps drive more word of mouth, means more repeat customers, so that's fantastic. What we also see is because we do more of what we perceive to be good things, is that we get more media, more social shares, more word of mouth because of those things, so it delivers that positive impact back to Intrepid.
Yeah, awesome. You've come from a performance background and now doing full funnel advertising with a focus on really building the brand and doing travel books and doing all of this ecosystem in a non-traditional space. I guess what has been the biggest learning there?
The biggest learning for me has probably been that you need to do both. Like, you can't shrug your commercial responsibilities. I still need to make sure that the brand work helps people remember us and understand us. But ultimately, if that's good work, it needs to drive a commercial result, and that you still need to be operating at two speeds. It's not one or the other. You've got to be capable to set your teams up and prioritize both things, because they're both super important. I think maybe too often we get in a little bit of a argument around the semantics of it, or brands better here, but like that. I think that's not the point. You need to do both, and they both help each other. And I think probably the happy accident that we've seen is the more brand work we do, the better performance continues to be. And then it's also the thing is, when you do it, your sales perform better, your paid direct response performs better. So with that, and then the hardest part becomes telling your story, because as you do more brand work, your performance metrics perform better, and people will be like, well, we want to do more performance because it's performing better. But you need to understand the ecosystem that goes into that. If people don't know who you are, it's really hard to grow. And there's lots of ways to do that. There's no one way. You need to understand your business and your sector to make that work. But yeah, we were probably coming from a point of opportunity around just performance marketing, a lot of PPC. It's quite a big part of the travel sphere, and the customer journey. So yeah, we needed to do both, and it's common sense. We think we know that as humans, that to be known, there's more trust. We see you out there. It removes barriers. And it's a lot more powerful, coming back to my early point around why we need to do it. If I search directly for Intrepid, they're actually coming with pure intent, not just searching around holiday to Vietnam. They're actually saying, I want to look at your brand and your business.
Was it difficult to persuade the board to make that first big jump and, I guess, bet in brand? Because it is a different game a little bit.
Yeah, I've been asked a couple of times, and I think I've flip-flopped between both sides. Because it happened during COVID. I can't remember if it was like an absolute battle. I think because it was COVID, it was like people were open to make stuff happen. Like we had to make some big changes and bets. So yeah, we all had to do the work. I had to talk through it, and I had to make a call and say, we're doing this. But I was pretty well supported by the business and the team here in Intrepid. And I think also I was quite lucky. It probably would have been much harder if the business was up humming, and we didn't have COVID, and like that feeling of like we have to do something different and new here. So yeah, there's still
facilitated that gear shift.
Yeah, made it a bit easier and removed some barriers there. And then, I still have to continually, tell the story and how it's working and keep championing that. It probably would have been much harder if it wasn't for COVID. I was lucky enough due to COVID probably to be able to have more time to do the reading, to do the work, to look at case studies, to understand, and have time to think about it, because you don't always have that luck when you're out and about operating for full tilt.
Yeah, 100%. Is there a brand or a business that you really admire in the way that they have sort of built the business over time?
My biggest brand crush at the moment is classic middle-aged man, is Bunnings at the moment. I just am like continually impressed with how they have this strong sense of community, how everyone shops there, I do always like to do the sniff test at the cafe or the pub, but like everyone you hang out with has been to Bunnings, and like recently, hard
to escape it, really.
I know, and then like even stuff that's like happy accidents, like the sausage sizzle is such like a iconic Australian thing that builds community. It helps raise funds. They have an amazing track record of hiring people from different walks of life, and hiring people for second, third careers, after, they're looking for that component. And yeah, I just seem to feel like they make a lot of right steps. And I was at a conference recently, and I think they're one of the only brands out of the pandemic that their trust has increased. A lot of the retailers had a big jump during COVID, and that's really plummeted during the cost of living crisis. Our banks haven't, but Bunnings over that time, I think now it's one of the most trusted brands in Australia, and it's taken over. Yeah, and I think it's like almost the top couple now. It's overtaken the airlines. It's overtaken the supermarkets. So yeah, that's my current brand crush, and the other one has been Costco too.
So for some reason, Bradbury kind of situation.
Yeah, oh man.
The airlines do something, then the supermarkets do something.
Yeah, you still got to be bloody good. Like Bradbury can skate, right? Yeah, I think so. And they just seem to do lots of stuff right, and you always go there and get what you want. Like, because they just do the basics really bloody well, and I just like respect the advertising so much too. Like they've just been able to keep the Bluey stuff was super cool. But even just like their standard ad of having actual employees get up and tell you about like what are you got to do for this footy season to get ready for the premiership. Like they just nail a sense of Australia community, and I think that's really cool. And then I've been looking into a lot and reading a lot about Costco at the moment as well. We've been doing some pretty interesting stuff, and they actually do a lot of really amazing stuff with how they look after their employees and whatnot. So yeah, amazing.
And just in terms of, I guess, being connected to the customer, what is it that you do to sort of remain relevant and always on kind of that front foot?
Yeah, look, there's a couple of things here that I do that helps is regularly call customers. I'll just drop a customer an email. You could have had a great experience, a bad experience, and I'll have a call with them. And I find that incredibly powerful. Geez, I learned some stuff directly from the customer's mouth. So yeah, I go into that with an open mind and just have a conversation with them. Really try and find out what they liked and didn't like. Really try and understand how they use all the assets and platforms that we have at Intrepid. I think one of the big learnings that I've had over time, and this comes through loud and clear from all customers, is how they use social media. They all use it as a verifier or proxy for trust. So they will go, they may never engage with any of our content on Instagram, so we'll never see it on an engagement score, but they'll go and be like, oh, okay, Intrepid's real. They've got the tick. They've got a couple 100,000 followers, and I can see an example of their trip. And they may never engage. They'll never like it, but that has come through loud and clear as a sneaky or an interesting way to people use social media. Go on trips. So we all go on trips with our customers. So we don't go on special bespoke tours. We all get a free of charge trip each year.
Do you tell them who you are, or are you like a secret shopper?
No, I'm pretty open and honest with that much. Sometimes good, sometimes bad.
Yeah.
But I think it's better to be open and honest. And to be honest, if the trip's not going well, I should be responsible for it. So
it's pretty amazing to have the chief customer officer there on your trip complaining too.
yeah. Well, the last trip I did was Mount Kinabalu, and you could just see me almost crying as I climbed up to the summit. So there's that thing too. They see the real person. And then we have a voice of the customer team that are going through and trawling through our customer feedback, NPS scores, and relaying that to me with reports. And then we have stuff too, like Feedback Friday, where our customer team shares feedback from our customers directly with the business. I have a customer quote, in our exec report when I present back to the board of the business. I always have a customer quote as part of that. So yeah, lots of little things like that just keep building and ensure that you keep your finger on the pulse.
And how did the travel books come about? Because that's quite not a bit of a left of center sort of jump, isn't it?
Yeah, very innovative founder. So very lucky to have a founder that's always pushing and thinking of new things. I think way back when Intrepid actually started, I think he was quite keen on it maybe being called Lonely Planet Adventures at that point.
Right.
And we had flirted with the idea previously. We had a partnership with Lonely Planet just before the pandemic as well. But what the genesis of the idea and what we're trying to do is, a holiday like ours is an infrequent purchase. So even if you're a super Intrepid fan, you're probably, only doing one trip a year or one every 2 years. Yeah, like I'm going to do a safari in Africa. I'm going to Antarctica. I'm going to trek to Machu Picchu. I'm going on a food adventure in Mexico. They're not things you're doing 2-3 times a year. Some people are lucky enough to. They're very rare, but we have those. But we really were trying to find ways that we can engage with our customers more often and to give them that brand experience that they really enjoy. We have incredibly high NPS. We know that the product's good. We know that there's something there that customers, and travel's a great storytelling vehicle. We're doing a lot of things to help us go beyond tours and to be more than a tour company. We have so we'll be launching a range of books. The same idea was for the hotels. People will stay in hotels more often. That is another way to continue to do that. We'll be launching a podcast this year as well. I don't know if I should have said that. My brand team might kill me, but anyway, we'll be launching an Intrepid podcast.
Later
I don't know. You can have an exclusive, Nick. Sure. It's that one might have slipped. I might get anyway.
If you send me a cease and desist letter later on.
We have Urban Adventures, which is a day tour offering where you can go and do a bite-sized Intrepid experience. So yeah, that's the nugget of the idea. We're going to test and learn and do a lot of different things. They're not all going to work, but we're really trying to find more ways for a company that has infrequent purchases to be more frequently purchase or engage with their customers. Yeah.
Yeah, interesting. And are you engaging like writers, or are these people that are going on these? Like who are the people writing?
Yes, we've partnered with Hardy Grant.
Okay.
To joint venture for us to create the books, and the stories in there will be a mix of travelers, Intrepid employees, and travel journalists.
Yeah, awesome. That's really cool. And I guess that also then potentially creates a whole content ecosystem that you could then blow out.
Hopefully that's the plan. We'll see how it goes, but we're really we've got we'll probably have, it'll be about 8 books launched by the end of 2025. Wow. And we'll take it from there and see what we can do to work with that content, how it gets to work harder for us, and whatnot. But we're just pretty excited to see an physical Intrepid asset out in the wild, because so much of what we do isn't. You don't see the trip, you experience it.
Yeah, awesome. And has becoming a father sort of changed the way that you look at everything you do in the business? I mean, obviously you're in a very ethical business, but has that shifted anything for you?
Oh, heaps. Like my whole, yeah, it probably.
Apart from the lack of sleep and everything like that. But...
Yeah. Oh, look, I think there's my respect for my wife and all mothers is just, and my own mother is just astronomical. My heart is filled in a very different way. I don't like it's. I just can't explain that. And then I think that the main thing for me and I is just reiterating is like prioritization of like what's the most important. Super important in work. I've really helped me reflect as my role in the leader is to try and help my people be put into place for success, and I've got to prioritize the things that I can have the most impact in, just like I can in my life. And I think Mackenzie, my daughter, has really been. I can't do it all at home as well, and I need to prioritize spending time with her and my wife, and doing those things. And then I need to take that into work because I could work 24 hours. I could sit at this laptop, and just punch out work, but. I'd die. The same at home if I was doing, I think it's probably given me greater clarity around what's important and what's not. I don't get it right all the time at home or at work.
Who does?
But I think that's sort of quite crystallized because, it's hectic.
Yeah. I've got 3.5 and a 1.5, so I fully...
Have you had a similar insight or anything you've learned, Nick?
100%.
Give me any advice? What to...
no, it's just, I have totally, after you see, your partner, create life and bring it into the world, it does sort of reframe everything. And it is hard to describe. I've talked to, Josh, my co-founder, about, what that experience is like, and you can't really describe it, but it is... it sort of grounded me and sort of made me feel more connected to being a human than I think anything else ever could. And so, I definitely try and keep hold of that in my day-to-day because it is easy to get swept up in, the nonsense of the 9 to 5 and trying to have a perspective of, okay, this is good and I'm doing good here, but I also need to be with my family and try and find that balance, which is hard. Being a business owner, I struggle switching off and.
I can imagine, yeah.
I
do too. Don't worry about it. I think the way I try and explain it so far is like being a dad's the best. Everything else is hard.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. No, awesomely. And just in terms of, I guess, managing people, like, how have you found that, and how has that changed over the years?
I like to think I'm a better people manager now than I was 15 years ago. Yeah, I think maybe I was lucky back then. It's quite different. I think because when you sort of feel like a changing the guard, I may have been a bit more radical at that time insofar of people empowerment, agile, setting North Stars, getting out of the way, where I'd come and I'd been managed myself very dictatorial. Here's your shopping list of shit to get done. Let you get it done. And when I finally got opportunity, I was almost like the antithesis of that, like completely wanting to push away and not. I probably went too far, probably over-empowered. I didn't give enough direction. I may have was too hippie or wishy-washy. But today, my philosophy is realistically, I focus a lot around how do I help my team win? I'm very conscious around not saying and trying to do everything. I've got to be very conscious with my words because I can send things off spiraling into the complete wrong direction. So I'm quite big on trying to provide a North Star, like saying, hey team, we want to be a global iconic brand. We need to make it easy as possible for our customers. We want, aspirationally, we want these things. Tell me what you need to make that happen, giving them those things, and then really trying to empower them to make that happen. And then being available to coach, talk to, visual, give feedback is how I do it. And then I really want to, very open and transparent in my communication. So trying to share with what I'm struggling with, what I'm trying to get through, really being open and showing the team that's a very, very transparent. Again, maybe to a detriment, I'll openly share when I'm struggling with something or I've had something go in my life, but really big on showing that I'm a real person, I AF up, and I'm open to hearing from people. It doesn't always come through that. I'm a big, loud guy. And sometimes my biggest reflection is I can probably take over a room with my personality and speak too much. So Nick, tell me to shut up if that's happening here.
No, not at all.
And another couple of things for me is I really think it's big to be weird, be yourself. And the other thing that my team hear me say a lot is, swing for the fences, really encourage people to go big be ambitious. If you go big and you fall just below, you're a hell of a lot further than if you just,
did the bare minimum.
I always use this quote. I don't know if I've made this quote or I've completely butchered it, but apparently Jay-Z said, "I'd rather choke on greatness than nibble on mediocrity." And I know that maybe doesn't make sense or I've completely made it up, but
it sounds good if it's real.
Yeah, it does. So try and get people to swing for the fence and go big and push themselves. So that's like a sort of sharing, Nick, of some of my philosophies.
Yeah, no, I love that. I love that. I guess what is next for Intrepid? Like, what's on the cards? You've talked about the expansion to the space. What are you really excited about?
I'm really pumped for our next 7 years. So we've put in place our 2030 strategy. We're going to become the first $1 billion adventure travel company, which is really exciting. What I'm most excited about is continuing to make more ways for people to engage with Intrepid. We believe the world needs more Intrepid people. If people are curious, if people are open, that's going to have a positive impact. So I'm just really excited for us to get out and spread the Intrepid brand, getting people to engage in our product, to travel. We believe the world needs more Intrepid people. So I'm just excited to go there. It's going to take us in lots of different ways. I never thought I'd be publishing a book range. So God knows what's going to happen next in the next couple of years. But yeah, most excited for that. We're also hiring a chief impact officer, which I'm really excited for as well. That'll be sitting on our C-suite, so that'll be really cool to see what they're able to bring. So, yeah, that message around the world needs more Intrepid people, and just seeing what cool and interesting places that's going to take us.
Yeah, it's amazing. No, I think something you said earlier really resonated with me. That it feels like we are in a little bit of a Bayesianification of society, and getting fed all of the same sort of content, and Intrepid Travel has that ability to really disrupt and get people out of their comfort zone and actually open their eyes to new experiences and new places, and maybe see the world in a slightly different place, which I think the world needs at the moment.
That's exactly right, Nick. You should be in marketing. You've nailed that messaging for me. I greatly appreciate that.
I'll type it up and send it across.
Yeah, cheers. That's some good copy.
Leigh, thanks so much for joining us. I guess one final question that I like to end on is, what advice would you give yourself looking back? If you were to see your 20-year-old self sitting there, what advice would you give him?
Don't be a dick. I think everything that I've looked back on, I could have been more empathetic to someone else, and I was thinking too much about myself. So, yeah, I'm holding my hands in my head, because everything that I feel like where I haven't done something right, it's where I wasn't empathetic enough and I was too selfish. So, yeah, if I'd been a bit more open, especially when I was younger, I think I would have got to where I am now a hell of a lot earlier.
Yeah, well, I guess wisdom comes with age and mistakes. So,
I still make them. It's probably the thing that I just like, you never know where someone's coming from, and and you get caught up in yourself a little bit too much. So I'm probably more humble and just think about where other people are coming from a bit more.
Awesome, Leigh. Well, thank you so much for joining us on the Mucky Middle.
Thanks so much, Nick. Appreciate it.
Thanks for listening to the Mucky Middle. I hope you enjoyed this episode as much as I enjoyed having the conversation. If you did, please hit the subscribe button wherever you get your podcasts, and if you feel so inclined, give us a review. It really helps other people discover the show and gives me a little dopamine hit as well. If you'd like to get in touch, you can find me on LinkedIn or shoot me an email at nick@papermoose.com.
The Mucky Middle is a Paper Moose production. Music by Caleb Jacobs.